Today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcasts, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you'll get when you include an ad from Podgo. Apply today to become a member immediately and be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co. And don't forget to mention I had to say it in the How Did You Hear About Podgo section of the application. The podcast you are about to listen to contains at least one of the following: strong language, disturbing topics, abusive opinions, generally things that aren't appropriate for little kids or overly sensitive people. So, if any of that stuff's going to get your nose out of joint, this is your chance to turn it off. Welcome to I Had to Say It, the podcast where I talk about things that I feel need talking about, and sometimes they're not getting the attention they deserve. And your feelings, they're not under consideration. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of I Had to Say It. We're going to start out with a brief discussion about something I was mulling over, considering the way things are going. We're starting to open back up for business here in the U.S. and starting to become a matter of business as usual. And that's not always the best thing to deal with, but in these particular circumstances, it's not a bad thing either. But I was reading something, and it got me thinking, and it, as a cynical old bastard, it kind of has me concerned that this thought may be a more common thing than I realize. This may be an issue, and it's kind of a case of, I really feel like it sort of trivializes people who have legitimate issues. Now, the thing that I saw as I was futzing around on social media, as I tend to do, and I saw something that somebody had posted about how they were so traumatized by the events of the last year, and they didn't know if they were going to be able to go back out into normal society and function as a human being. And I think that's really kind of fucked up, because I legitimately know people who are genuine, diagnosed, legitimate agoraphobics. I know a couple people that literally don't leave their house because they are terrified to function in normal society. And I understand being introverted. I'm not trying to minimize anybody's actual mental health. It's not something we address frequently enough in this country, in our society. It's not the kind of thing that people talk about in any kind of real, functional, helpful way. The problem is, I feel like, to a certain extent, we are so overcompensating for this now, particularly with the younger individuals that are out there walking around the world. I mean, when the generation behind me, my kids' age, are full-blown technical adults right now, and not only are they lacking in some, what in my opinion are basic life skills because they were mollycoddled by their parents or raised by their grandparents, which is a whole different soapbox, but we've overcompensated so strongly from dealing with a generation or two before mine where mental health wasn't something we talked about. Emotions weren't something that were necessarily dealt with if you were a man or any of this other shit. And that's also not a healthy mindset. By no means am I saying it is, but the takeaway I got from this is people are talking about, I'm not going to be able to go back out and function in society, and it feels so weird to not be wearing a mask now that Uncle Sam said we don't have to anymore. And I'm really genuinely concerned as to how this speaks to the general mindset that so many people are looking at things from this perspective. You go back 18 months and none of us were walking around saying, oh my God, it's impossible to see another human being's face without me being traumatized. First off, you're not fucking traumatized. I'm sorry. Genuine trauma does not come from seeing another human being's face unless that human being did something fucking terrible to you, looks just like someone who did something fucking terrible to you, or you have much bigger issues to deal with than that person's face. The problem isn't with seeing that person's face. The problem is with your mentality, with your approach, with your outlook. And we've gotten so geared towards telling people it's okay to be in your feels, it's okay to be emotional, it's okay to say you're having these mental issues, that people with legitimate mental issues are kind of getting lumped to the side by all these assholes who are using it as a cop-out. People who are saying, oh, well, I can't deal with this. I can't cope with this. We need to make adjustments to accommodate me. No, you need to put your big kid pants back on and get back out there and get back to being a fucking adult. I mean, there are people with legitimate mental issues when it comes to things with, like, going outside. I'm not saying there's not. I know some that are very close to me personally who legitimately are on prescription medications because they have some sort of imbalance that stops them from being able to function, like genuine, full-on, full-bore panic attacks. And the problem is, so many of these people that are out there saying this ignorant, stupid shit legitimately have no idea what that actually feels like. They feel like it's all kinds of undue drama. It's a crock of shit when it comes to saying, oh my God, I'm going to have a panic attack because if I have to go to the grocery store and people aren't wearing a mask and they're getting too close to me. Motherfucker, if you didn't have a problem with it a year and a half ago, yes, some people may have developed some legitimate mental issues in the course of the pandemic. But it's a lot more likely that you're hyping yourself up and you're just doing this for attention, and that's just fucking sad. You shouldn't be claiming legitimate medical issues if it's not a true thing. It's going to take some acclimating to get back to dealing with things on a normal day-to-day basis. It is going to take some adjustment to get back to dealing with things in a normal way. And frankly, there's no law that says you can't wear the fucking mask if you feel that uncomfortable about it. And if the masks are genuinely effective, and I'm not an anti-masker, I'm not a pro-masker, I'm a pro-choice person. And here's the way I look at it, because a lot of people have given me shit about this for expressing this belief. If the masks actually work, and I've heard every argument either way, if it works well enough to be an issue, as people, we've reached herd immunity, whether it's through vaccinations or whatever, where the people that you trusted told you that you needed a mask in the first place are now telling you that it's not as big a deal. If you can wear your mask and it makes you feel better, go ahead and wear it. But if you're having some sort of ridiculous overreaction to the fact that other people are not wearing it and you're not comfortable with that, you really need to reassess what your actual problem is, because the big brother who told you to use the mask in the first place is now telling you that it's not necessary for whatever reasons. Just fucking suck it up. It's really... I guess my biggest issue with this whole thing is I feel like it is people trivializing legitimate things, legitimate problems people have in the names of trying to somehow draw attention to themselves, and that they lack the capacity to function as a fucking grown-up. And it's really just sad. It's not... And we somehow have this culture that encourages this shit, and I think in the long term that is going to be harmful in ways that a lot of people aren't going to acknowledge for quite a while. And the woke people are going to hate me for saying, oh, well, you're being fucking stupid. But you know what? You're being fucking stupid. It's not that I particularly disbelieve people who say they have these issues. It's more that I believe a lot of people say have these issues that are doing it for the attention. They're jumping on board a bandwagon because they want to be able to say, oh yeah, me too. Look at me too. You have this shitty fucked up thing. Oh, look. People are giving you attention because you're saying you have a shitty fucked up thing. I have shitty fucked up thing too. And, oh, it's like this, that, and the other. And, well, everybody's mental imbalances and mental illnesses are person-specific. No two diagnoses are the same. The people who are saying this shit for pure attention and for look at me, feel bad for me, accommodate me, make me special, generally believe that there is a cut and dry, yes, this is how this is, and look, I exemplify this, my problem is this. Oh, that's not how it affects you? Well, your problem is not legitimate because it doesn't fit the criteria that I have somehow established in my fucking pointy little head. And these are the most vocal, arrogant, obnoxious sons of bitches that are out there. And they scream for validation, they scream for attention, and it's, how dare you question what I think, and how dare you not be bending over backwards to accommodate me and make me feel comfortable? So, honestly, the more I see these kind of things, and it's really, when I saw it once, I was just like, okay, you're being a fucking drama queen. And then I started seeing the similar sentiment popping up from other people on multiple platforms, in multiple formats. I've seen memes about it. I've seen legitimate individual posts where somebody retyped something that somebody else typed. I've seen retweets. I've seen... It's fucking ridiculous. People are trying to amplify this, like, oh yeah, me too, me too. Look at me, pay attention to me. Somebody else has something fucked up. I have something fucked up. We're on the same side. Look, legitimize me, validate me, tell me I'm special, tell me I'm pretty, tell me I'm pretty. Okay, and, fucking get over it. If you have a legitimate mental health issue, if you have a legitimate fear, a legitimate concern, I fully believe you should be able to go out and seek help without being stigmatized for it, without being mocked or berated or any of this other shit that we do to people that are vocalizing legitimate issues. And the reason people feel like they can't deal with these things are shithead people reacting negatively to them trying to seek help. So they don't seek help, and the problems get worse. The problems intensify. The problems become major issues as opposed to something that they could be working on or diagnosing or treating. But conversely, when you're making a huge stink about something where you don't have a legitimate issue, you're just bandwagoning this bullshit, you're as much of a problem as the people that are saying don't talk about it and don't seek help, don't do anything to change these things. Because the more people try and act like they have a problem without legitimately having the problem, the less people who don't acknowledge that problem or don't want to deal with that issue take that thing seriously. And there's a whole lot of attention seeking going on these days, and part of it's maybe our culture's obsession with celebrity, and people that want to be famous so badly they're willing to say or do all kinds of dumb shit in the name of attention. And everybody knows I don't have any patience for people that are celebrities, particularly ones that are famous for doing nothing. If you provide some sort of entertainment or some sort of value to me on a personal level and you're famous for it, that's all well and good in that capacity. I don't give a shit what you think. I don't give a shit about your politics. If you don't provide some sort of value to me, you are completely worthless. And we've somehow gotten away from that. We've somehow gotten to where we're worshiping these people, and people are willing to say or do anything to try and make that mark. And I've bitched about it before. I'm sure you guys are probably sick of hearing me about this shit, but it's the TikTok trends and the reels and the chat rooms and the posts and everybody thinking they're going to blow up and be the next whoever. And it's just sad. I mean, it's one thing to be doing like a makeup tutorial because it's something you enjoy and it's something that's fun. It's another thing because you think somehow somebody's going to see you and go, oh my God, yes, let me throw money and attention at you and make you famous. Just fucking no, stop. I mean, for Christ's sakes, we need to get this in check. And there are studies out there, there's research out there that shows all this social media shit is addictive, and it's a form of mental illness in and of itself. It triggers the same chemical reactions in your brain as drug use. That should fucking tell you something. And we've gotten ridiculous with it. We're putting, all kinds of electronics in the hands of our children that provides the same stimulation, the same sense of euphoric chemical release in your brains that comes from using all sorts of chemicals which our society still seems to think we shouldn't be dealing with. And when it comes to things like that, I'm more, as long as you're not hurting anybody, with the possible exception of opioids, heroin, that sort of shit. At this point, we all know how destructive and addictive that stuff is, and I'm not a real big fan of amphetamines and things like that either. I'm not a huge proponent of people who want to use those stimulants, and like I said, opioids are just so horribly addictive, and they literally remove your ability to function, and it is not a good thing in my opinion. However, I don't necessarily believe my opinion should regulate anybody else's life as long as they're not hurting anybody. I'm all for decriminalizing all narcotics, all drugs across the board. The war on drugs is a ridiculous futile exercise. They can't keep drugs out of prisons. They can't keep weapons out of prisons. The most tightly regulated governmental agencies on the planet. And you can still get high and still kill somebody while you're in there if you really want to. So the government protecting us from the big bad things is horseshit. If they were really concerned about fixing the problem, there would be more education and it would be treatment. They're treating addiction like what it is, a fucking disease, as opposed to just saying, oh, well, no, the substance itself is the problem. No, the mentality of the person using it is the problem. There are functional people who go out there and have drinks every day that are technically, by definition, alcoholics, but they're not in prison because they can still function normally without causing any harm to anybody except themselves. But at the same time, in so much of this country, you still can't smoke a joint without risking losing your job and going to jail because it's due to a basic smear campaign. It's a federally classified illegal substance, and it's fucking ridiculous. It's not even anything you have to process. It comes out of the ground that way. It's natural. Not that natural means anything. It's one of those big things I've always kind of gone on about when people say things are organic or things are better for you because they're this, that, and the other. And I'll tell them, you can get organic nightshade that'll kill you just as dead as anything else. You can get organic hemlock. It's poisonous. Doesn't have any pesticides in it. Doesn't mean it's not going to kill your fucking ass. So these meaningless labels don't mean shit. All natural doesn't mean good for you. Engineered doesn't mean bad for you. It's as much about the usage and the intent as anything else. And we've forgotten that, and it's generally frustrating me. And the whole situation is just fucking ridiculous. Stupid fucking people are jumping on board with it. They're getting behind it, and they're saying, oh yeah, this, that, and the other. And meanwhile, the people that are actually suffering and actually need help and need treatment and need these substances can't get them because either it's corporate whoring for profits, and the whole reason a lot of these things are illegal is because if they were decriminalized and made legal, a lot of big companies would lose a lot of fucking money. Because a lot of the natural things can actually be obtained without chemicals or labs or any of this other shit. So they stand to lose a fuck ton of money. And that means no kickbacks. That means politicians have no incentive to change what's working on because they're not going to take the bread out of their own mouth. So I guess the takeaway from this is we need to stop treating drugs like they are crimes. We need to stop treating addiction like it's the drug's fault. And we need to stop bullshitting about mental issues we're not having that actual people are having. Because when you have a whole bunch of people saying shit that's not the case, the people that do have the case lose legitimacy. Because if you think somebody's constantly bullshitting about something, you're not going to believe anybody who says it. It's kind of like all the people who walk around saying they have gluten allergies nowadays. The legitimate celiacs can't get the attention or the consideration they need because everybody and their mother now has a gluten allergy because it's trendy not to eat fucking gluten. So every time you say something about it, everybody rolls their eyes. And when you legitimately have a medical issue and the people that you need to take care of you are having that medical issue, they don't buy it. And they're not going to be as careful as they need to be, and it's fucking ridiculous. So we're going to take a quick pause here while I stick in an ad for another show I think you really should be listening to, and when we come back, we're going to carry on about something else that's just stuck in my craw.
Hello!
We are You Should Have Ghosted,
a true crime online dating podcast.
I'm Shayna, and I love true crime, wine, and I met my husband online.
I'm Liz, and I'm single and exploring online dating.
We're ex-coworkers who became best friends through our obsession with true crime podcasts and decided we should make one of our own.
You Should Have Ghosted is a podcast that we hope will enlighten people to the dark side of online dating and shine a light on serious issues with accountability in the dating app world.
Join us for dark stories and cringy content.
See you next Tuesday!
Okay, so welcome back. Thanks for listening to that. I really hope you go check out that program as well. Now, in the second half of this thing, I kind of want to talk about something that, in my personal opinion, ties back into mental illness. And it's something I've been really dealing with a lot lately in my own personal interactions with people. And maybe it's having spent so much time away from people where now that I'm actually having to deal with people again on a regular basis, this is just standing out more to me. But I've noticed that a lot of people, and maybe it's always been this way, but I feel like it's more now than it's ever been me noticing in the past. A lot of people really have no functioning fucking personality. And it ties into a bunch of factors, including nobody wants to own up to anything. Nobody wants to take responsibility for anything. But I don't think people understand how to actually just be themselves without having to make excuses and cop-outs and reasons why they think things are wrong. And the reason I'm saying I think this ties into mental illness is I've noticed way too many people recently, and by and wide it's a lot of people that are judgy and bitchy and pushy, and they will be just rotten, shitty people. And then it's like, oh, well, don't blame me. I'm a, whatever astrological sign. You know how we are. No, I know you're acting like a shithead and then trying to blame it on something that's completely outside your control for why you're acting like a shitty human being. And I take issue with that. I like people on an individual basis. I don't like people as a group. By and wide, I like people, or I don't like people on an individual basis. But part of that goes because individuals can be interesting. Individuals can develop a personality. When you start marrying yourself to concepts that are herd mentality things, when you start looking at things that are beyond your immediate control and trying to use those as attributes or trying to use them as a personality or a way of defining yourself and who you are and what you act like and what you believe in, you're really the saltine fucking cracker of personalities at that point. You are bland and inoffensive in as far as being something worth having any attention put on it. Maybe bland and inoffensive is the wrong way of saying it, but definitely fucking boring. And to me, on a personal level, I'm offended as shit by people who won't own up to their own actions and people that seem to think any sort of external influence justifies their own shitty behavior and their own dumbass things that they're doing. So, if you're going to do something fucking stupid, and then when I call you on it, you're going to, oh, well, I'm a Pisces. No, you're a fucking tool. If you really believe that the way planets are aligned has anything to do with your personality in terms of excusing shitty fucking behavior, you're a moron. Because even if you are a person that believes in astrology, and I don't know enough about the subject matter on anything that can be confirmed from a scientific standpoint, from a mental assessment of here's how this should be, I don't have enough hard evidence to say yea or nay, because it's really one of those things that's kind of impossible to really put a finger on and prove it. And I've noticed by and wide people who are into that shit, and I don't mean like a little bit, I mean like really into it, like plotting out star charts and all this other shit, they will take general personality traits that could be applied across the board and try and hone them into saying it's specifically because you're related to X, Y, and Z. The problem is, anybody who does this stuff on a casual basis will point to some like fucking meme that says, if you are one of these 8 fucking star signs, you have this personality trait. You just said if you are one of, 75% of the human population, this could apply to you. No shit. You're painting shit with you're not even using broad strokes at that point. You're painting fucking general descriptions with a fucking roller. It's ridiculous. And I mean, if you want to look at those things and do it for entertainment value, that's why literally every astrological chart you find anywhere is somewhere in the fine print says for entertainment purposes only. Because it's not something you can hang your hat on. It's not something you can point to as proof. And it's definitely not something you can use as an excuse when you do something fucking dumb from any kind of legal standpoint. Your star charts are never going to absolve you of responsibility in a legal court case. So trying to say that's why your personality is the way it is just as much of a fucking cop-out in my book. It goes back to I'm constantly preaching, own up, take responsibility, be a grown-up, put on your big girl or big boy pants, and or big non-gender specific, whatever. I don't give a fuck. Put on your grown-up pants and be a fucking adult. Own up for what you did. If you get called out on doing something shitty, just go with it. Say, yeah, you know what? I did. Fuck you. If you feel you're justified in your actions, don't point to something obscure and say that's why it happened. Don't say it's because I was born in this place. I don't expect you to understand. Beyond the boundaries of certain cultural differences, that is as far as that goes. It's not anything in the water. It's not something in the elevation that's going to make you a shitty human being. It's being a shitty human being. And realistically, that's just kind of how I feel about that. It's not a real deep well to dig in. It's more of a shallow puddle, but let's face it, some of these episodes really are shallow because it's stupid little superficial shit that shouldn't be happening, and we shouldn't be having to have these conversations. I shouldn't have to tell dumb motherfuckers they're being dumb motherfuckers. Society should be the ones telling these dumb motherfuckers that they're dumb. Unfortunately, the dumb motherfuckers outnumber the people with any fucking common sense anymore, and so we're living in idiocracy, basically. Another 50 years, they're going to be selling hand jobs at Starbucks, and it's going to be ridiculous. But that just seems to be where people want to live. And I don't get it, because you look at all these spots across the country, and when they're having the riots last year, and I'm not going to call them unrest, because a riot's a fucking riot. I really don't care where you stand on that one. And these supposed little paradises they were setting up with no authority and no cops and all these government-free zones, and they all fell apart so fucking fast. You know why? Because it's a dumb fucking idea. None of y'all are grown up enough to have those kind of privileges of not having somebody to tell you yes or no. And until we get to that point, y'all need to just knock that shit off. Start being responsible. Start being somebody that's worthy of being unruled. How about that? And, you know, it's until we get to that point, stop being so fucking stupid and stop being so goddamn selfish. And for now, that's what I had to say. Thanks for listening to another episode of I Had to Say It. If you liked what you heard, leave a review, give us a follow, give me some feedback. And if you didn't like what you heard, leave a review, give me a follow, give me some feedback. I'll try and fix it. Check us out on all the social media platforms. At I Had to Say It podcast is the trigger for all that stuff, for the search term. And if you want, check out the website, www.ihadtosayitpodcast.com. There's links to people that have been involved with the program, things I've talked about. There are some links available for some merch that we're working on, and there are ways to contact us there as well. And thanks for listening, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.